I watched my mother bleed to death. Yet now she stands before me claiming she doesn't know me. Chapter 19. Her eyes gleamed an otherworldly green, reminiscent of ethereal torches burning in the darkness. The eerie glow unsettled me, a stark contrast against the oppressive gloom of the cursed forest. Yet I found myself rendered speechless, my vocal cords paralyzed by the 𝐿𝐢𝐬, my own mother, standing before me in this haunted realm. My mind reeled, struggling to process the impossible scene unfolding before me. I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. I saw you bleed. 𝐊𝐢𝐬's brow furrowed, her head tilting in confusion. I'm so sorry, but I don't recall ever meeting you. Warrior, she replied, her words laced with genuine bewilderment. The weight of her response crushed my chest, my heart twisting painfully within. 𝐿𝐤, ever protective, exclaimed, "What do you mean you don't recall meeting us?" He pressed a hand to his chest, his voice rising with emotion. "We're your pups." Silence stretched between us as 𝐊𝐤 stared back, her warm face marred by that confused expression. Guilt shimmered in her luminous eyes, a reflection of her inability to recognize her own children. My gaze dropped to the forest floor, realization dawning. Her memory was wiped. I murmured, the words bitter on my tongue. 𝐿𝐤's head snapped towards me. Disbelief etched across his features. "What do you mean wiped? People can't just wipe memories. Memory go." 𝐿𝐤, I interrupted, my voice heavy with knowledge of the supernatural. "Fight them or feed them your most treasured memories." I swallowed hard, fighting back tears as I met his gaze. We were her most treasured memories. His jaw ticked, a familiar sign of his determination. "Where can we find them?" "Sorry, but I don't know what either of you are talking about," 𝐿𝐤 interjected, her pragmatic nature shining through despite her confusion. I turned to her, my voice softening as I explained. "Memory golems also wipe your encounter with them so they can feed off of you more. But it seems you've escaped them." Hesitating for a moment, I added, "If it's not too much to ask, could we seek shelter at your cottage?" 𝐿𝐤 paused, her observant eyes scanning 𝐿𝐤 and me before she nodded cautiously. "I will need something in return, though." A smile tugged at my lips, recognizing the familiar negotiation tactic. Classic mother move, I thought. "Anything," I offered without hesitation. "One of your swords and more knowledge of whatever creatures roam these grounds," she proposed, her tone matter of fact. "If you don't want to go through the hassle of talking about these monsters, then you'll have both of your swords." "I think you'll take the first option," I replied, my tone conveying the obviousness of my choice. "Pity," 𝐿𝐤 mumbled before turning away. "Follow me. Then, make sure to walk in the shadows." I know, I wanted to say. "Look, Mama, I know so much about all of this. Are you proud?" We trailed behind her silently, navigating the treacherous woods. Various creatures scurried into caves, desperate to avoid becoming the witch's next meal. Even the imposing 10-foot monster had slain earlier paled in comparison to the threat 𝐊𝐤 posed. Walking proved challenging, but I was grateful for 𝐿𝐤's support as I leaned against him. Without his assistance, I doubted I could have managed the journey. 𝐿𝐤 deliberately bumped his shoulder against mine, drawing my attention. "Doesn't this all seem a bit odd?" he whispered, his skepticism evident. None of this feels real. "Leela, Mother doesn't even feel real. She doesn't smell like she used to. If you stay in here long enough, your scent depletes. Try and smell me." He sniffed my shoulder at my command and sighed, proven wrong. "So you can't. This place is too complicated." "It is," I agreed. Finally, we reached 𝐊𝐤's place. It was a cottage made of perfectly cut logs stacked upon each other. It evoked something inside me, pulled at a stray string in my heart the more I stared at it. I could have sworn I'd seen it before as well. I grew agitated. This was all too much. "Call me insane, Leela." 𝐿𝐤's voice shook. but docent that look exactly like our home back in the north. That's what it was. I'm not going to agree because I don't remember much of our home, but I'm certainly not going to disagree. I took a deep breath. The sight of it overwhelms me. Same here. Rather than mumbling behind my back, the least you could do is thank me for inviting you in. Hayes coughed. Come in, now. Best not stay outside at this hour. Mother always despised secrets. That's probably where 𝐿𝐴𝐸 got his hate for them. Her words, though angry, made me smile in content. They also made me realize that my entire family, the family I spent 6 years mourning, were alive. Every single one of them, father, mother, my brother. I sighed and entered her cottage with 𝐿𝐴𝐸 by my side. How do you like it? 𝐿𝐴𝐤 asked. Ivy always preferred smaller spaces over larger ones. They make me feel more whole. I know you do. I mumbled. She heard. Her ears perked up before she said, I am your supposed mother. Am in Thai. I nodded. Indeed you are. Come, sit, tell me of your favorite moments with me. You'd imagine that would make you feel better that I don't remember much. She patted the leather couch seats. Come, you'll prepare some tea and saffron biscuits. Your biscuits were legendary. I always finished them before my sister would need to punish me for it. And didn't do it again if it meant she got to eat. 𝐿𝐴𝐤's tone was light as she poured the tea into the cups. Chest to skinny. You do well with a few curves. 𝐊𝐴𝐸. My heart soared. 𝐊𝐴𝐸. In my mother tongue. It meant darling. She didn't know me and she was calling me darling. That was so like her. You were always blunt. I added. You never failed to mention that I was too skinny or too fat. How would you expect to find a male with the body of a whale? It simply doesn't make sense. 𝐿𝐴𝐤 shook her head and placed a tray of biscuits and tea on the coffee table. All this talk of how much the soul matters is all fiction to delude you into believing that you're special and enough being yourself when in fact, you're nothing but a commoner. I completed her sentence, catching her off guard. Her eyes connected with mine and she swallowed. Goddess, you really are my kids. The one and only. 𝐿𝐴𝐸 said. We hope you're impressed. What are your titles? She asked immediately. Worried. I'm the beta of the north. And your daughter here is the royal guard of the 4 kingdoms. He explained. Her jaw slacked and her eyes faltered for the smallest of moments. She didn't seem impressed. Just more surprised than anything, really. It was a reaction I expected and would have returned if I got anything different. Wow, she took a step back. A fist held by her side. That's impressive. I know. And before we got here, your daughter took down this 10-foot monster made of black gunk. Goddess, mother, you should have seen it. You took down a black banshee. It dropped a biscuit and rushed to my aid. You idiot. You could have died. Why would you stray near the muddy soil? Her eyes went down to my leg where the banshee's head still examined and wrapped around my foot. Goddess, that's going to take a lot of work to remove. I'm afraid I don't have the resource to get rid of it. Tell me, are you injured? I'm fine. Mother. I smiled at her. A hug will do, a hug will do. She swatted my forehead, evoking a hiss from me. You need stitches and ointment. Woman. Not a hug. 𝐿𝐴𝐤 stared down at 𝐿𝐴𝐸 in shock and comical anger, her hands resting at her hips as she shook her head and said something along the lines of you shouldn't be laughing. Your sister has 2 broken ribs. But I couldn't tell. I just watched in awe as my mother stood in front of me, pulling open a drawer to grabbing gauze and stitches. I felt full, and that was very different from feeling whole. I also felt light, like I hadn't just broken my fingers, ribs and wrist. 𝐿𝐴𝐤. My mother, lost dead. All those years I'd spent blaming myself for her death flew out of my mind and into the forest-cursed air. Those memories would remain there, trapped within the soil of these forbidden grounds as I left to the castle. Now, girlie, look up. You have a gash on your neck. Seems it branched or it up. I did as mother instructed and looked up, hissing at the burning sensation the ointment brought. You really are strong. Bubba taught me, I croaked, a small smile staining my lip. 𝐻𝐸's still alive from what I hear. Really? Really? She rose her brow and moved to heal the gash on my forehead. Tell me more about him. What were we like? You didn't love each other's. It was more of a mutual agreement, but you wanted kids that brought you together. I watched as she frowned. Is anything of the matter? She sighed. I always wondered whether or not I'd met my soulmate in the past. Your words gave me an answer I didn't want to heart. Though I'm not surprised I made such an agreement. I do love kids. You loved us when we were younger but treated us like soldiers when we grew older. 𝐊𝐲 said. As I should have. I want warriors for children. Not artists. When did art ever stop a war? Never. She taught me. Now that I mention it, I do recall a certain someone spilling paints all over my wedding gown. That was me. I was the artist. 𝐿𝐲 shook her head and stood up to put the gauze and ointment back in her drawer. I stand by my word. Art is there for mere enjoyment. It doesn't help anyone. Her eyes shifted to 𝐿𝐲, but I do remember wanting to paint when I was younger. Mother always slapped me when I said so. She said I'd do better by learning how to cook and clean than paint. They both followed after that. The comfortable, serene chatter of my mother and brother could be heard in the background of my thinking. 𝐿𝐲 proceeded to ask 𝐿𝐲 several questions of the past and how we did in school, whether or not we were top in our class and what our favorite subjects were. She even asked him questions about me when she noticed I was dozing off, and I appreciated it. All that morning and guilt dissipated. I really did see you bleed. Mom, I interrupted their chatter. In front of me. You died trying to save me, but you weren't skilled enough. You never were. They both stared at me with wide eyes. I didn't blame them. She let out a shaky breath and gestured for me to get up. Come here, come here. I did. I stood up and walked till I was right in front of her, heart beating out of my chest and traitorous stares rushing to my eyes. She stared right back at me, eyes greener than my own and lips stretched to a warm smile. I'm here, 𝐊𝐴𝐵𝐵𝐻. Those words meant everything to me. The minute you walked into my home, I sensed such intense grief and guilt. You blame yourself for my injury, and I won't speak against it. You definitely could have risen and helped me a little. I let out a sad laugh at her words. But I'm here. Goddess, I feel like I've known you both for so long, but can't remember a single moment with you. It's the memory golem. If we can find the one that met with you, we could restore your memories. But that would be a trick for later. I said, we must take you with us back to the castle. We can't have you staying here. Her eyes faltered for a moment before she nodded and wrapped me in her arms. We'll talk about that in the morning. Now hand me your swords. Can't have those flying around in here. My brows furrowed. You expect us to hand you our only weapons. That's unusual. Our home was filled to the brim with traps and swords. Why, yes, I do. Young lady, you're in my home and I don't quite trust you just yet. Well then, it's best I leave with both of them on my back. Right, I said, laughing. She clenched her jaw. At least leave them outside. 𝐿𝐻𝐻. You loved admiring swords. 𝐿𝐲 said. We need to catch a witch and leave these lands with her. We won't be able to do so without these weapons, and leaving them outside would make them a very good present for those monsters. Is that so? 𝐿𝐲's eyes shifted from ours to the bookcase behind us. Well, 𝐿 witch, well, I'll help you out. I couldn't help but notice how she began fidgeting with the necklace wrapped around her neck. One I'd never seen before. The pendant attached to the chain was a circle with an upside-down V inside it, and never did I recall seeing Mother wearing such a symbol. Maybe she met someone in these lands. Do you have any friends around here? I asked. She shook her head and walked to her bookcase. No, I'm all alone here. It's difficult to find mycans whose brains are still intact. That begs the question. I began, watching as she grabbed a book from her bookshelf. How is your brain still intact? I don't remember you ever training. Mother. 𝐿𝐲 eyed me but stayed silent. I was glad he understood that these cursed grounds were my domain. 𝐿𝐲 laughed. 𝐊𝐤 laughed, scratching the top of her head. Maybe you've come in contact with a memory golem. I won't lie. I've encountered several of those, but I've never fed any of them my memories. He spun around, eyes wide. You're saying that you murdered every single golem you've come in contact with. I nodded, lips pursed. You haven't answered my question. The atmosphere suddenly turned thick with angst. I didn't like it. Oh, I guess I just got lucky. 𝐿𝐤 pulled open the book. Please, be seated. 𝐿𝐤, I don't remember telling you my name. My tone was cautious as I stalked towards her. 𝐿𝐤 flicked frantically through the pages of her book. What was it you said? I didn't tell you my name. I slid the dagger strapped to my thigh out of its compartment and hid it behind my back. My memories must be coming back. That's impossible. Mother, to fiction. I watched as her face brightened at the view of a page of her book. Mother. She whispered something underneath her breath. Fuck. Without a second thought. I rose my foot and kicked the book out of her hands, not giving her a chance to read out whatever she was about to. She stared up at me. You inferior dog. Have you any idea what lies beneath those pages? Her voice turned deeper, raspier. It sounded nothing like Mother's voice. What's wrong with you? I asked, tightening my hold on the dagger. Moan. 𝐿𝐤 laughed, so sinister I felt my spine curl in discomfort and my stomach churn. 𝐿𝐤 𝐸𝐤. I grabbed 𝐿𝐤 by the shoulders before she could continue her phrase and slammed my knee into her stomach, forcing her to slump forward in pain. The back of her neck was exposed to me. Please don't be right. 𝐿𝐤. I prayed to the goddess. Please be my actual mother. Not thinking twice, I grabbed my dagger and punctured the back of her neck with it, watching as she shouted words in a language I didn't understand. Her waist grew larger, her shoulders widened and her skin wrinkled, all while she was writhing in pain on the ground. I stumbled backwards, watching as the woman who was supposed to be my mother transformed into a lady so ancient I was surprised she was still alive. She was a witch. I hated it so much that I was right. I hated the fact that Mother was actually dead. My chest swarmed with a herd of bees that buzzed with such ferocity I couldn't breathe. The dagger slid from my fingers and I bent over, puking all over the witch's carpet. Black wood came out of my body along with the fruits I consumed that morning with Luca. My throat felt like it just swallowed fire, but there was no water for me to consume in these grounds. I heard the old woman laugh once more and turned livid. Shut it. I croaked, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. Shut it. You wretched witch. She laughed tiredly, resting her back against the bookcase. That glamour worked wonders on you. When I was younger, I was told to respect older women, but that woman, that witch, I couldn't. I physically and emotionally couldn't stand her and that nasty face of hers. I squatted down to face her, outraged. If you utter one more word, bitch, I sneered, I will behead you and feed you to my male for breakfast. Her eyes faltered, an unrecognizable emotion passing through her brown orbs before she lowered them, ultimately submitting to me. Until I say your time with me has passed, you are to follow my every order. Fight every beast I command you to, even if it means your useless life is on the line. You will only wake up when I demand you to and sleep when I say so. Am I clear? I tilted my head, waiting for an answer from her. I said, am I clear? Your wish is my command. 𝐿𝐤. Her tone was condescending and it forced me to lay a kick to her stomach. 𝐿𝐤, calm down, back off. Slay man. I shouted, rage overcoming my entire body as he tried to wrap his arms around me. Just don't. Mother was alive. She was dead and it was because of me. She said it herself. 𝐿𝐤, I understand what you may be going. You don't understand. Slay man. I pushed him away from me, overwhelmed. 𝐿𝐤. I watched Mother's eyes turn dull in front of me when I was 12 and didn't do anything to stop it. Odd. I kicked over a stack of books, the feeling of guilt suffocating me. My hand slowly rose my lips as I realized just how much I could have helped her. Father trained me enough. Really? I was skilled enough to do so much more than kill for soldiers. But I didn't. I hid in that damned wardrobe for goddess knows how long before I found myself in the outskirts. What was wrong with me? 𝐊𝐲, look at me. This void in my chest. It won't go away. Ever since she died, it's been there growing and growing like a stone over my lungs. Another tear fell onto my cheek as I felt a gloomy fire settle atop my heart. My heart feels heavy. Brother. I always feel so. So heavy. I felt my knees, unable to carry myself any longer. At that moment, as I watched the witch-ess in front of me fall into a deep slumber, I want to dig up my grave and rest within it. I wanted to grab my sword and stab it through my chest. The pain of it all would at least take my mind off her green eyes. My wounds, they take longer to heal without her. I rest, staring at my broken finger. Just not there to rack them anymore. Is she? I stared up at 𝐿𝐲 for an answer. He gave me nothing but silence. Just not there to sing my nightmares away anymore. A sob flew out of my lips. Is she? My eyes lowered to the ground, to the beautiful carpet I had stained. Mother was gone. I knew for a long time that she was gone. But that day, the day I stared into her green eyes and all their powerful glory, hope brewed in my chest that my family was finally won. That mother was dead because I was too scared to jump out of that closet. That my pack hadn't been slaughtered to bits. Maybe I held on to her memories too strongly. Maybe I desired her warmth too much. Goddess, just the thought of her hugs charged another sob out of me. I could have helped her. 𝐿𝐲. I dug my fingers into the carpet. My body too overwhelmed. For fuck's sake, I could have saved her. She could have been laughing with us right now. 𝐿𝐲, stop. It was your fault. Oh, shut it. 𝐿𝐲. I screamed. She said it herself. She said it her damn self. I shook my head as my tears fell onto the carpet. You weren't there. Nobody was. I could have easily stabbed that soldier in the chest. She could have been laughing. The world dizzied around me as I recalled the moment that soldier stabbed my mother in the back. It spun as I remembered how her eyes dulled, as though they were a song reaching its end. My stomach churned furthermore, forcing my back to bend and an array of bodily contents to spill out of my mouth and onto the carpet again. I felt so dirty, so guilty, so useless as I let out everything in me. I wiped my mouth and stood up, tripping over my feet. 𝐿𝐲 followed suit, ready to hold me, but I held out a broken hand, stopping him. 𝐿𝐲, you can't be like this. I can, I began, and I will. I stumbled into the kitchen and stared back at wooden counters. There laid her saffron biscuits. They smelled exactly like they used to, exactly like how my mother would cook them. So I took the plate of biscuits in my hand, stared at them one last time, and smashed them onto the ground. I flinched at the sound and gazed solemnly at the broken shards of glass. In those shards, I caught my reflection staring back at me. I caught my green eyes looking back at me in all their audacity. Who the hell gave me the right to be alive? A mere girl who cowed and held back her tears. I should have died instead of my mother. I should be dead. Arms wrapped around me, around the filth I carried with me and squeezed. I didn't return the touch. Instead, I stood there and waited for it to stop. 𝐿𝐲, let it out. Let it out. It's only me here. My reflection was still staring back at me. I hated it. So I stomped my foot onto the glass, forcing it to break into pieces that could never be brought back together. It took a while for me to feel anything again. But when I did, it was that hollow feeling rising from deep within my chest once more. So I wailed once it came cried at the force of an animal vomiting on all fours. Not even extreme exhaustion could stop my tears from streaming out of my eyes. Nothing could. It was that day that I accepted that the hollowness in my chest would remain absolute, that the void would rest within my heart until I passed 3 more centuries and flew to the moon. Once 12 hours had passed, we made it out of the outskirts safely. I couldn't walk properly, so 𝐿𝐲 had to have me by his side and used to cart the witch owned to rush back to the mainland. We made it out safely and followed the moon. But I was grateful I made it out safely. I was disappointed. So extremely disappointed. Our horses were safe and sound, resting until we woke them up and got on their backs. To the castle. We went. To the castle. I wept. Chapter 20. My entire body ached. Breathing was a task in itself, with every breath I took eliciting a sharp pain in my rib area. And it hurt. It hurt so bad. It confused me because I went through that almost every day in the outskirts, fought monsters taller than trees and stronger than steel. But this time, it was worse. The consequences of that battle were so much worse. In my chest was a bell that was constantly ringing. Rather than the ringing, all I felt was the emptiness inside of the bell. The leftover vibration of the hits against the metal. All I felt was space. It was worse than anything I could have ever imagined. Heavier than what I recalled and all the more hollow. I tightened my grip on the leash, trying my hardest to not fall off of the horse, and winced. I completely forgot about my broken fingers. I completely forgot about everything on my ride to the kingdom. The view of the castle gates rose into my line of vision, forcing a sigh of relief out of me. We arrived. After 14 hours of continuous riding, we were finally back at the castle, ready to be treated amongst the medics and nurses. I couldn't wait to take a shower, to rest within the warm waters of the privileged and never step foot back into the outskirts. I also couldn't wait to get rid of the golem's head that was wrapped around my foot. To wave it, as time passed, stalled a certain ache throughout my entire thigh. Welcome back, Royal Guard. A soldier bowed respect into his posture before he pushed the gates open and resumed his standing. I was too drained to react. All I did was connect my eyes to his and hope he knew I appreciated his action. He probably didn't think that. Probably thought I was sat. I just hoped he understood, because lately, people cared more of themselves than anybody else. The moon goddess would have bellowed at the sight of that witch. Goddess. Who does that? Who takes the form of a being's dead mother to manipulate them into trafficking? Who does that? I didn't understand how anybody could do something so vile and unworthy. It made me fear humanity, and despite the power of my lichen, it made me question why the Mother of the Moon bestowed upon us such evil creatures and monsters. Weren't we supposed to be her children? Weren't we supposed to be her most prized creation? I swallowed down an array of overwhelming emotions and stopped my thoughts from running further. It was sinful to question the power of the moon, and I would not sin further. It was bad enough I had my mother's blood on my hands. How are you holding up? Suleiman asked for the nth time that day. All I did was look back at him and nod, when in reality, I felt something bad was growing in the pit of my stomach. I felt the insides of the monster as I slayed lurk between my tissues and swim into my bodily fluids. As the horses walked further into the front yard of the castle, their heels padding across the cobblestone trail, the fog cleared up and there stood 6 figures right beside the entrance. I hoped they weren't there to welcome us. The sight of me was horrifying and worrying, to say the least. It was only when my horse stopped moving that I was able to conclude who exactly they were. Luca, the Luna, and the leaders, all for kingdoms, including the northern leader. A man with a beard thicker than sheep's wool and skin scattered with scars and fine wrinkles. A man whose jaw slacked at the sight of me. A man whose eyes watered as they landed on my beaten body. My father. He made it, I thought. I noticed Suleiman's head snap to me. He was about to speak, maybe comfort me, but the northern leader was quick to interrupt him. Leela. Father's tone was thick with undeniable emotion. My throat clogged up. I didn't want this to be another dream. I really didn't. The thought that I was alone in this world with a brother who had his own family to raise and a mother whose life was in my wretched hands was daunting. It was like walking down a dark path for eternity, knowing the monster was waiting for you at the end of the tunnel. You knew the monster wouldn't get to you, that it would take you infinity to reach him, but you also knew that he existed. That he existed because of you. Leader of the North. My voice scraped against the walls of my throat. Greetings. I spoke with two-faced respect. Did he even bother looking for me? You're eerie alive. He held a hand to his mouth. "Goddess, you're here. I am." I wasn't anywhere near as happy as he was. In fact, his presence brought nothing but anxiety to my being. When would he die? How would he die? Who would be responsible for his death? Those questions racked through my brain as I stared back at him with vessels for eyes and a stone for a face. "Is the questioning instrument in your hands?" the Luna asked. "Because I see nothing but a box. The box holds a witch the royal guard holds captive with her soul. She will question the slain." Anne paused, eyes moving to my fingers that struggled to hold onto the horse. "The leaders of our kingdom." The air was thick with confusion and awe. Nobody knew why the northern leader knew my first name. Nobody knew why I looked so wrecked atop my horse. Nobody knew how I caught a witch and stuffed her into a box. Nobody knew and never know. Because they were kings and queens, strolling through their castles and fighting none other than people of their own species. Nuka walked forward, eyes connected to my own and filled to the brim with tears I couldn't understand. He placed a hand on my horse's head and swallowed down his emotions. The leaders behind him questions his actions. I noticed the way his bicep twitched, the way his fingers itched to grab me off of my horse and protect me from whatever evil the world withheld. It made me want to jump into his arms. It made me want to slip into his chest harder than I did with Slay Man. But I couldn't, and neither could he. So we remained in that position for a time frame of several seconds, me staring down at him from my horse and him looking up at me in desperation, until he spoke with those beautiful lips of his. "Call the medics." Luca's voice rasped. Now the Luna scowled. "I am no mediator." Luca spun around and roared at his mother, eyes glowing that stunning amber of theirs. That was an order. She stumbled backwards, a hand held to her chest. She crossed the line and didn't know why, and I was glad. That woman was to blame for my pack's attack, and if I could, I would order that witch to bring alive her worst memories, but my heart couldn't live knowing I put someone through such a moment. I would bear the burden seeing Mother's eyes one last time, and nobody else would. All right." The Lunas scurried back unto the castle, hands gripping at the skirt of her dress to inform the medics that I needed help. "Alpha of the North, you have full access to the witch my guard has brought to you. You may begin your questioning tomorrow." Luca's eyes came back to mine. "The guard will rest until I say chef's fit to fight." If he had said such a thing a few days ago, I would have told him off for even insinuating that he had power over me. But at that moment, I couldn't. I needed rest. I needed to hibernate for 3 years until I was finally ready to come out of the shadows and speak of my past, of all the bones it broken and the lichens I had to murder. It was only when I saw Luca that I realized how much I missed his hold. He spoke with authority so absolute it made me want to wrap my arms around him and stay there forever, because I knew for a fact that he would outlive me. I knew that I wouldn't have to witness nor mourn his death, that he would be with me until I passed my time with nature. "Leaders, I request you all leave to your chambers." Now Lucas looked up at Slay Man, "including you, Honorable Beta. I must have a word with my guard." My guard. Those words sizzled an emotion I couldn't handle through my veins, one that rushed a gush of dizziness so strong I had to shut my eyes to withstand it. The leaders bowed down to Luca and headed to their chambers until it was just my male and I, starting down at each other's with no words able to escape the wisps of our lips. His eyes, in all the amber ambiguity, held such a softness as they looked up at me, as they assessed the gash on my forehead and the broken inches in my fingers, as they admired the strength my posture held regardless of the ribs it'd broken and seams it'd witnessed. "I sensed something when you were gone," he began, placing a warm hand atop my uninjured thigh. 22 hours passed of your absence, and all I felt was a simple desire to have you by my side. But by the 23rd hour, my entire body was on fire. My wolf, his lips wavered. He told me you were gone. He told me he could sense nothing but anger in you. My lips parted as I released a shaky breath, the events of last night rushing to my mind. "I thought you went rogue. Leela," he croaked, head lowering. "I thought you were no longer here." I felt the same, that I was no longer the woman I was when I first entered the castle. Back at the cottage, It was almost as though I grabbed a knife and stabbed everything that made me me. My love for all things beautiful. My admiration for instruments and art. My ability to fight with no remorse. A tear slipped down my cheek and fell onto his hand, forcing him to snap his head to face me. His eyes widened at the sight of my sadness, and immediately he slid his hands under my knees and carried me into his chest, and knowing of all the glass shards trapped within my body. The medics passed us. The maid saw me in his arms. The castle walls whispered my name and his, 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐪. My eyes rolled to the back of my head as I began losing consciousness of reality, as I slowly felt myself beg to go to sleep to not withstand what tomorrow held. I heard Lucas shouting. I felt him shaking me in his arms and, dare I say, sensed a droplet of water fall onto my head. He was crying. So badly did I want to open my eyes and tell him to stop. That I was dying, but only passing out for a minute or two. But even I didn't know if that was the truth. Whatever that monster was, his black blood was floating within my own, infesting the veins of my body ever so agonizingly. My body soon fell limp into his arms. I felt my body be placed onto a metal table and sensed my armor be ripped off of me, violating my very right to privacy. And sudden cold rushed up the flat of my stomach and swiveled through the swell of my breast. I shivered. I was surprised I could still feel such a thing. A syringe was stabbed into my thigh, forcing my body upwards and my eyes to fly open. Adrenaline. My arms turned jittery as several nurses began wrapped them in bandages and casts. It was like I was going to explode. I was hot and cold. I was tired but filled to the brim with synthetic energy. I was shivering, but I was also sweating. My eyes opened to find that Luca was in the operating room with me. Rather, it was a male doctor and for nurses that aided to all my petty wounds. A scalpel cut into the skin of my stomach and I laid there, on the operating table, numb. I suddenly wanted my male there with me. Luca, I whispered through the commotion of the room. Where is he? You have to rest. Dearie, your body is on the brim of collapsing. The nurse had eyes that looked very familiar. A honey brown color I could have sworn I'd seen before. Come on. Close those beautiful eyes of yours. Luca, I muttered, chest caving. Where is he? My ears rang powerfully and I shut my eyes, body clenching. The nurse placed a cold hand on my forehead, dizzying me even further. The art of holding on to dear life grew unbearable at the presence of her hand, and I wanted to slap it off. But I couldn't. It seemed I couldn't do a lot of things too. Luca, 𝐖𝐨𝐥𝐼𝐬, I said, one last time as my eyes began closing. It wasn't until I heard the door slam open that I finally shut down and dreamt of a nothingness so profound I can't but reach into it. Chapter 21. It's been for days. Doctor, why is she still in deep slumber? I'm afraid whatever she quarreled with has infested her blood. Have no fear though. Alpha, whatever it is dying in her body. It cannot survive in her blood. How so? It can only thrive in dark environments such as the Banished Lands. These castle grounds are too pure for its soul. A sigh was let out. At least that's what I believe is happening. How are her ribs? Almost fully healed. Her fingers? Brand new. And what of her legs? They seem fine to me. The nurses keep a constant eye on them and her nerves respond to our every test. It's just a matter of when she will wake up. Now her body is almost fully healthy. My eyes slid open as a migraine settled deep within my head. I was in a hospital room, one much more luxurious than the northern healing rooms. This one had tall windows spread across several walls and beds instead of wooden planks. And my eyes caught the curtains that laid whimsically against one glass window. The sight of it calmed my nerves as every drape and serene flow beautiful in mind. I was alive. In fact, I was relieved to be alive and breathing. Leela. My eyes adjusted to face the owner of the deep voice. Leela, are you feeling all right? It was my father. I gulped, turning my face so I was looking into his brown eyes. They reminded me too much of the events of a few days ago, when the witch spoke of how she was glad to have married my father and how she would have done it again. It reminded me of the tranquil atmosphere of that cottage before we found out that Mother was gone and I was alone once more. Fine. I croaked. Throat dry. He paused. He paused. Do you need anything? A glass of water will do. Delo. Go get Leela some water. Make it warm and sprinkle some lemon in there. My jaw ticked at his answer. I always liked my water warm and sour, just like my father did. He remembered, and I hated that he remembered. I wanted the memory of me and all the moments we shared to vanish from his head so that I wouldn't have to go through having to find out he didn't bother looking for. Deep down, I wanted to find an excuse for him leaving me astray in the outskirts at the age of 12, but I couldn't. He was an alpha now. He could have sent the entire pack out to search for me, would have found me. Dalo nodded, sprinting out of the room. She didn't even greet me. Doctor, could we please have a moment alone? His voice wavered. The sound of the door closing told me that the doctor had left me alone with my father by 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬, the Alpha of the North Door, as I knew him, the lead fighter of the North. He was an intimidating man, tall and solid as a brick, with the voice of a brooding monster. It helped that he seemed monstrous when I was in the North and prevented several of my classmates from approaching me, but it also made me immune from fearing a lot in life. I kept my eyes glued to my covers as I fiddled with my recovered fingers. Honestly, I wanted to see Luca and tell him of the monster I fought. Maybe he would tell me he was proud. Maybe he wouldn't bombard me with memories I didn't want to revisit. Leela, Father began. I hope you remember me. The urge to say no was strong, but I nodded nonetheless. I don't know where to begin. Leela, he took a deep breath, a shaky one. I thought you were dead. My heart twisted. Did you look for me? Finally, I faced his eyes, his beautiful chocolate brown eyes. He was taken aback by my question, startled by the answer I gave him. I didn't know whether it was because he expected me to jump in his arms and thank him for his training service to me, but I just wasn't having it. I sent out a group of men to look for you the minute our pack rose. I promise. Is that what 𝐿𝐻𝐬? I scoffed. For men. I was being a brat and I knew that. But I was also hurt. You're worth 1,000 men. Leela. But He sighed. Leela, I felt your bond in my heart. It was strong and roaring with life. Stronger than any man I could have sent. I knew risking those men would be irrational because I knew you would be able to survive out there. His eyes softened and he swallowed. You're my daughter, for God's sake. My daughter. My lips wavered as I tried my hardest to hold my tears. At times I would feel your bond slip. And that's when I sent hundreds of men looking for you. He reached for my bandaged band. But you always came back. Habibti. You always came back. His hold on my hand tightened as he sniffed, looking away from me. I knew you wouldn't have wanted those men's lives on your hands, so I didn't send out more than 2 in total. She didn't come back. He was right. The weight of those men's absence settled atop my heart and he noticed, shaking my hand. It's my fault, not yours. Silence accompanied us for several minutes after his confession and I enjoyed it. The way the wind swayed into the room from the open window and the warmth Father's hand spread throughout my entire being. It was the most peaceful I'd felt for months. It even took my mind off of Mother's damned eyes and I appreciated that. It was bad. I let out. His face snapped to mine. Eyes watery. What was bad? Tell me. I gulped. Out there. It was bad. Father's jaw ticked. Your mother told me to build that tunnel. She said they would never find you in the outskirts. Who's they? This castle. He shook his head. Your mother was part seer. A fascinating woman. She was. A traitor. A stare left my eyes at his words. I saw her. I croaked. I saw Mom. His jaw slacked. She was alive. Though. 𝐊𝐲𝐿𝐻𝐬 herself to look like Mother. But Father, it was lightest it ever felt. A sob left my throat. She said if I helped her, she would still be alive today. Leela, stop this. He scooted his chair to hold both of my hands in his. "Stop these tears. Your mother predicted her death 2 years before she was killed. If she didn't die then, she would have died later." I cowed and helped but feel relieved at what father had said, but I also cowed and stopped the tears that left my eyes. Mother was a fascinating woman I didn't appreciate enough. She was the woman that would shout at you for hurting yourself but then bandage your injury minutes later. She was the woman that spoke the hard truth with no filter but told you it would be okay after. She was the woman I was too young to admire when I was younger, a woman that was too complexly strong for my brain to adhere. Father pulled me into his chest and laid his chin atop my forehead, letting out the unshaky breath of the day. He was controlling his tears for me, remaining strong for me. I told her I hated her. "Father," I rasped into his chest. 2 days before she died, I told her I hated her because she said I was weak. A droplet of water landed on my head. "Your mother told me you were the strongest little girl she'd ever met. Why did she never tell me that?" My breathing faltered. Why did she never tell me? "She wanted you to become a phoenix. Not an angel." Father laid a kiss on my forehead. "She wanted you to be made of fire, not glass." A rush of emotion swiveled through my chest, forcing an array of tears to run down my face. I hated how much I cried, how much I let my feelings control my every fiber. But I also knew that my wounds were deep, that my regrets ran for light years and my sorrow for decades. "I love her," I confessed. "I love her so much. She loved you more." He tightened his arms around me. "She loved you to the moon and back. She loves you to the moon and back." Without question, I wrapped my arms around his waist and laid there, tears staining the cloth of his armor. I couldn't believe my dad. Of all people, my dad was there. I was holding him, not dreaming of him. I felt his tears wet my scalp. I felt him. My grip on him tightened and he returned the gesture. "I'm here, 𝐊𝐢𝐬, and from now on, they'll always be here." I felt his chest rise. "I'm not letting you go." He pulled away from my grip, staring into the depth of my eyes. "Come back with 𝐿𝐤 and I. Come to the north and be our royal guard." My lips parted at his request, overwhelmed. "Oh, is there not a royal guard already?" He shook his head. "I didn't have the stomach to fill that position. It was meant for you. 𝐾𝐚. I swallowed down my nerves and pulled away from him further. "You'll have to think about it. Bubba. It's because of your mail, isn't it?" My eyes widened. "How did you know?" "The maid saw the king's eyes water when he sent you into the operating room. They saw him carry you off the horse. You were heaven for those women's gossip." Father let out a chuckle. "I'm impressed by the moon's choice. She's mated you to an honorable man." A small smile overcame my lips. "Father, Luca is wonderful." "Luca." I slapped a hand to my lips. I shouldn't have said that. Never in a million years did I think our king would be called Luca. He tilted his head, examining me. "This Luca boy. When can I sit down with him?" "Whenever you like. Your wish is my command." Those last words fulfilled the hole in my heart. They brought back only the memories I cherished of Father's awfully difficult sessions of training and lessened my hollowness. "How about tomorrow?" The boy already brings a smile to your lips. I thought that was my job. I let out a small chuckle at Father's lips and nodded. "I'll inform him of your request," I said. "Oh, and a woman with red hair said she needed to speak to you urgently. Something about a maid cursing her," Father said, forcing my eyes to widen. "Where is she?" I asked immediately. "I last saw her 2 days ago." Her mail seemed fairly angry. "Goddess, do you think she's gone missing?" Father was about to speak until the door was pushed open, revealing none other than Roman in his honey-eyed glory. He held a board in his hand and sported a lab coat that was too short for his lanky frame, but still looked great on him. "Apologies, that the Luna demands you wake and work with the witch to get your brother's plan over with." He shrugged. "I could tell her you're still sedated." "Moria?" I shook my head. "No need. You'll be up." "Oh, best get the wheelchair." "I won't be needing that." You look taken aback. Are you sure? Whatever was strapped to your foot dismantled a few of the nerves in your left leg. It'll take a few more days before you're fully able to walk. Oh, I connected my eyes with Father's and watched him nod. You'll have the wheelchair. Then, Roman nodded and left to get the wheelchair. Fine boy. That is, Father said. He really is. I need to tell you something. Leela, Father was interrupted by the sound of metal and the door opening. Annoyed, I snapped my head to Roman, who struggled to get the wheelchair open. His father was reddening, indicating his embarrassment before he finally got it to jump open, with the exception of him falling on his bum from the impact. He scratched the back of his before smiling sheepishly. A wheelchair. Royal Guard. It'll be off then. Father got ready to stand up until I grabbed his wrist. Will you take me there? To the Luna. I sounded a tad bit desperate, but my heart was fragile at the moment. It desired connection and company with a deep passion, and I wanted to feed it exactly that. Father inhaled, smiling with his eyes down at me. I wouldn't have it any other way. Now get into your armor. My armor was new. It was stronger, more agile, and fit me better. Even its color, a wonderful midnight blue, seemed darker and more illuminating. My love for it grew stronger, regardless of whether or not I was walking in it. It reminded me of Lara, made me picture her sawing every detail into the mind, bending piece of protection. Where was she? And what witch was she talking about? Father pushed my wheelchair down the hallway that led to the questioning room, and I was grateful for it. I tried pushing myself down the damn corridor but couldn't, the wheels of my wheelchair too heavy for my delicate arms. He stopped once we reached a set of double doors the color of ashes. They were tall, scary and beholding. Father leaned down. A witch lays behind these doors. Leela, will you be okay with that? I thought about it. Would I be okay with that? The simple answer was no. I would have done anything to avoid seeing that wretched witch, but I knew 𝐶𝐿 wouldn't be okay with that. It was his fault I went ahead and took control of the witch instead of him, even after warning him that he should have used his weapon. Silently, I nodded, and so he pushed the door open, revealing a room the size of my own chambers. All 3 leaders of the East, West and South sat on chairs along with the Luna and several princesses discussing matters I had no interest in on a metal chair in the middle of the room. 𝐶𝐿 and Lucas stood behind the witch, hands held behind their backs and eyes glued to my own. I wanted to run into Lucas' arms and lay kisses all over his wonderful face. Hello. He linked me. Hello, hello. I linked back. Head tilted. Silence. Leaders. The guard has arrived. As of now, everything you say and think will be recorded onto paper, and you will have no right to deny any use of that information. Luca ordered. Am I clear? They bowed to the king and nodded. Guard. The room is all yours. Luca bowed down to me, surprising everyone in the room, including me. I gulped, tightening my grip on the handles of my wheelchair. Here goes nothing, I thought. First in question is the South. I said, voice clear. The Alpha of the South stood up and sat on the chair that laid in front of the witch, posture strong and strides big. He was confident that he was innocent, and so was I. So I knew from the start he had nothing to do with the war. With all the strength I could muster up, I pushed my wheelchair so I sat next to the Alpha of the South. It was hard, but I made sure not to show it. Witch of the banished lands, you will use this man's heart and seek the truth. If he lies, you will cut yourself on the arm once. I eyed the witch. Am I clear? O holder of my soul, but I have no knife. Her tone was cocky, and it made my eye twitch. 𝐶𝐿 slid a dagger that was strapped to his thigh out of its compartment and handed it to the witch. This enough? Or would you like something larger? The witch sneered and snatched the armor from 𝐶𝐿's hold. I continued. The deeper the lie, the deeper the cut. If a leader is accused of planning the war on the North 6 years ago, you stab yourself in the heart. But am I clear? I asked, eyes shining bright green. The witch's eyes moved from mine to the Southern leader's own, and he snarled at her. Don't look at me, bitch. Suddenly, I loved Southern people. I took a deep breath and faced the Southerner. Leader of the South. Can I have your name? He nodded. 𝐾𝐞𝐬𝐬𝐸. Would you mind if I called you by your first name? Please do. I smiled gratefully at him. When was the last time you visited the North? 𝐶𝐶𝐬𝐬𝐸. I never have. Though I would love to. One day, my eyes shifted to the witch who remained still, dagger still in her hand. I'll make this simple. Did you have anything to do with the attack on the North 6 years ago? On December 4th, 1689. And if you didn't, what have you heard of the attack? I had nothing to do with the attack. Royal Guard. I can promise you that. The day we heard the North was falling down, we brought our own warriors to help fight off the attackers. Thank you, Leader of the South. You're excused. The Southern leader stood up and sent me a nod. Leader of the East. You are second in question. The Eastern leader was a woman with long legs and skin the color of molten chocolate. Her armor was color and coated with metal that glinted through the open windows of the room. She was stunning, so much that I questioned why the Luna didn't wed him to her instead of the Western princess. She sat down on the chair and faced me. Royal Guard. Could I please have your name? Leader of the East. 𝐊𝐴𝐷𝐿𝐢𝐬𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵. And no, I wouldn't mind if you called me by my first name. I blushed furiously at her words and lowered my eyes. Goddess, was she flirting with me? I certainly didn't mind. 𝐊𝐴𝐷𝐿𝐢𝐬𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵. When was the last time you visited the North? I was at the North before I arrived in the castle. I was discussing a treaty with the Alpha. By 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐳, she explained. I had absolutely nothing to do with the attack on the North. As soon as I heard of the war, I sent my men to aid you in battle, just like the Southerners did. I watched the witch lay peacefully on the chair, saddened by the fact that she was hurting. Slay man. Unhame the witch. Unhame the witch. I ordered. Well, that would be stupid. Royal Guard. Why in the world would we do such a thing? She's perfectly capable of hurting herself like this. The Luna exclaimed, scoffing after. Unhame the witch. Unhame the witch. Brother. I repeated. Eyes catching slay man. He did as I asked, unlocking the chains and forcing a laugh of freedom out of the witch. I unhooked my dagger from my thigh and stabbed it into her thigh, evoking a scream from the witch and a gasp from all leaders except the Eastern leader. You only laugh when I say so. You only speak when I say so. You only breathe when I say so. And as of now, your only job is to listen to the rhythm of the leaders' hearts, breathe, and do exactly as I command. The witch shivered as I slid the knife out of her thigh, moaning in pain. Leader of the East. You are excused, I said, face stoic as she stood up and joined the rest of the leaders. Leader of the West. You're up next. The Luna eyed the princess as the Western Alpha took his seat next to me. Posture strong. He sent an odd, one I returned only out of respect but also confusion because he genuinely seemed not to be blamed. Your name. Western leader. I ordered. Luke Weston. Did you have anything to do with the war or 1689? My eyes training on his as he answered. I had nothing to do with the attack. No, immediately. My eyes snapped to the witch who remained seated. Did the West have anything to do with the attack? I asked. No, not that I know of. Again, my head snapped to the witch. HES not lying. Girlie, she croaked, lips rising. There we go. We are all dismissed. I interrupted the Luna's words. I called the Princess of the West to the chair. I bellowed, silencing her. The platinum-haired princess' eyes widened as she faced the Luna, as did her mother. The Luna faced me, eyes angry. The princess has nothing to do with this. You are embarrassing the Eastern family name. While I appreciate your kind words, Luna, they are not needed. My daughter is an honorable woman. If the guard doesn't see it fit, best prove to her that she is. The Western leader said, standing up. Come on, 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐸. Up you go, up you go. Daddy. But I don't want to. 𝐏𝐿's eyes watered as her father walked towards her. It's not as scary as it seems. If the guard accepts, we could have her place the chair farther away. Luke turned around to look at me. Could that be arranged? My daughter fears witches. I nodded in flame and pulled the chair an inch or two away from the witch. 𝐏𝐿 walked, shoulders slumped, to the chair and sat down. She fiddled with the skirt of her baby blue gown and kept her eyes lowered. She looked guilty, so very guilty. And I didn't see how in the world she would be involved with the attack. 6 years ago she would have only been about 19. So how in the world could she have ordered an attack when she wasn't even respected as a princess? 𝐏𝐿 Weston, Princess of the West. I took a deep breath. Eyes trained on 𝐏𝐿's frowning face. Did you have anything to do with the War of 1689? No, I did not. The witch's hand rose as though somebody pulled it up with a string and sliced a cut onto the top of her arm. I gasped lowly, eyes snapping to the angel-faced princess. You're 𝐖𝐿𝐬, I said, chest caving. I'm not. The witch's hand rose once more and drew a cut deeper than the one before on the same spot on her arm. This has to be a joke. Luke Weston stood up from his chair. The witch is lying. The witch doesn't lie unless I tell her to. Alpha, I reassured, not giving him another glance. 𝐏𝐿, sit down. Alpha of the West. Luca ordered, forcing Luke to do as he asked. How were you involved in the attack? I asked 𝐏𝐿, eyes angry and all the more confused. Speak before I order the witch to cut you instead of herself. I wasn't involved in the attack. She forced the witch to deepen the cut on her upper arm. The leaders were as shocked as I was. Witch, you are to cut the princess whenever she lies, I said, evoking a sigh of relief out of the witch. I wasn't having it. These lies. You can't do that. 𝐏𝐿 shouted. You can't. How are you involved in the attack? 𝐏𝐿 Weston. I wasn't. The witch grabbed 𝐏𝐿 by the wrist and ran the dagger through her snow skin, just under her elbow. 𝐏𝐿 screamed and snatched her hand away from the witch, crying at the new dent in her once perfect skin. How were you involved in the attack? Mother. Talk to her. 𝐏𝐿 held her elbow as she cried. Her mother shook her head. A hand held at her lips. I won't ask again. 𝐏𝐿. I stood up from my wheelchair, legs shaking. How in the hell were you involved in the attack? The Luna promised me the king's love if I gave her 6-0 soldiers. It wasn't my fault. She was the one that said she would make the king fall for me if I helped her. You bitch. The Luna screamed, hands clenched by her sides. Chest lying. I didn't cut myself on the arm 3 times to lie. Old hag, the witch uttered. I didn't allow you the privilege of speaking. I growled at the witch. Luna, please, do me the honor of sitting on the chair and proving that 𝐏𝐿 is lying. 𝐏𝐿 jumped out of the wooden chair and ran into the bathroom to the left of the room. A soldier stood beside it, ready to grab her if she ran away. The seat is bloody. I would never. I kicked the wooden chair out of the way and pushed my wheelchair to replace it. Have a seat. You do not order me. Be seated. Mother, Luca ordered. The Luna's jaw ticked as she forced herself off her seat and onto the wheelchair. As soon as she sat, the witch twitched, her hold on the dagger tightening. Her eyes turned saturated with fear and she turned to me, begging, chain me, Commander. I shook my head. She let out a strained scream as she tried to stop her arm from rising. Stab yourself in the heart if the leader of the attack is seated in front of you, witch, I ordered, leg burning. The witch let out one last cry before holding the dagger up to her chest and plunging it into her heart, forcing a scream out of the Luna as the witch's black blood dropped onto the Luna's white gloves. My eyes shined a bright green. The holland was in my chest less, and furthermore, the truth was out for everyone to see. The Luna of all lichens was exposed,